3 out of every 10,000 Americans live with sickle cell disease. That's someone in your city, maybe your neighborhood. They endure pain so intense it feels like glass shredding through their veins, rushing to emergency rooms when the pain becomes unbearable. 2 revolutionary gene therapies now exist that could free them from this nightmare. They work. The FDA approved them, but at $2.2 million per treatment, it might as well not exist for most patients. Even with insurance, it remains a distant dream. Welcome back to the Smart Biotech Scientist Podcast. I'm your host, David Brühlmann. For more than 15 years, I've been driven by one mission: to help make life-saving therapies accessible to more patients worldwide. Because right now, manufacturing costs are keeping these treatments away from 80% of patients who need them. My fellow Smart Biotech scientist, every process improvement you achieve isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It's another person who might actually get the treatment they desperately need. Today, in part 2 of our special 4-part series on the evolution and future of bioprocessing, we will dive into the 5 critical challenges that our industry is facing. This isn't just about improving processes, it's about breaking down the barriers between life-saving treatments and the people who need them. From the complexities of personalized medicine to the astronomical cost of production, these challenges are the roadblocks we must overcome. Because every minute you spend solving these challenges in the lab is another minute closer to making these treatments accessible to everyone, not just the privileged few. Let's explore these challenges and set the stage for innovative solutions we'll discuss in parts 3 and 4. Now, let me highlight 5 specific challenges that we are facing in the bioprocessing industry from tapping into the full potential of these new modalities. The challenge number 1 is the industry is moving away from platform technologies. For the last few decades, we mostly have produced antibodies using this very same template. We are producing cells, we're cultivating cells in a bioreactor, mostly CHO cells, sometimes sp2/0 cells, and some others. Then we harvest the cells, we purify them using protein A, and then we are finishing off the purification with a series of ultrafiltration, diafiltration steps, and polishing steps. There are slight variations, but this is pretty much it. For new modalities, we were not able to use this template anymore. Challenge number 2 is we're seeing an increased personalization and small batch sizes. For instance, look at an autologous cell therapy. Here, the cells are isolated from the patient, cultivated in the lab, and then injected back into the patient. So you see, to treat this chronic pancreatitis, you have a patient population of 1, which means a much smaller batch size, very likely less automatized, and again, unfortunately, much more paper-driven. Yes, that's the reality currently in the cell and gene therapy space. We are now seeing not stainless steel cathedrals anymore in these new facilities. A manufacturing facility looks much more like a lab with just a certain number of cabinets. And now scaling up the process is not increasing the volume of the bioreactor anymore. It looks much more like this, where we have just more of these cabinets in the lab sitting. So a very different way to manufacture products. The challenge number 3 is that we are cultivating increasingly more sensitive cells. So we have been very fortunate with CHO because CHOs are actually quite robust. We can treat them quite badly. But now with new cells, we have to be much nicer with these cells. And now this is why a lot of people are innovating in the bioreactor space. For instance, Colibri, a startup out of Paris, they developed an acoustic wave bioreactor. So you're not seeing an agitator in the reactor anymore. You're just using sound waves to move the cells around. You can even use that to transfect your cells and then harvest your cells. A German company, Biothrust, they are developing bionic bioreactors that enable stress-free cultivation conditions. And the Green Elephant, they developed a cell screw that enables adherent cell cultures in a minimal space. So we are also seeing much more adherent cell cultures again, because certain cells simply don't grow in suspension mode. We're also seeing microcarriers now again, and a lot more. And finally, a French startup, Cellura, they developed a new bioreactor type, and surprise, it is an empty cylinder. So, but with a twist, obviously. So they are developed this reactor. It's a tilted, partially filled, cylindrical bioreactor that rotates around this axis, and this provides a gentle and very homogeneous mixing, the perfect bioreactor for highly sensitive cells. These challenges we have discussed, moving away from platform technologies, the challenges of increased personalization, and the complexities of working with sensitive cells, they might seem daunting. But in bioprocessing, every challenge presents an opportunity for innovation. These alone would be significant hurdles. But as we'll see in the next two challenges, the stakes get even higher when we consider the cell as the product and the critical issue of accessibility. Let's continue. Challenge number 4 is the cell has become the product. And to help you fully grasp this complexity, let me put this into perspective. Because we have now cultivated meat or cellular therapies that are the product. An antibody protein is of about 150 kilodalton. Now a cell is 10 to the power of 14th Dalton. That's, in case in the morning the math takes a bit longer, I wrote it down here. It's 1 billion times more. 1 billion times. And not only that, a cell is incomprehensibly more complex than an antibody. More on that later in the second part of the presentation. And number 5, the challenge number 5 is the high costs of these products prevent a widespread access. For instance, in the biologic space, here an example of the biologics to treat severe asthma. Most of the world still doesn't have access to this biologic. You see, Africa doesn't have anyone, and then all these red countries in South America or in Southeast Asia, they just have one. And then obviously the Western world has several options. But even if you live in a country where there are biologics, it doesn't mean that you will have access to the biologics because oftentimes they're just way too expensive. And it gets even worse in the cell and gene therapy space. The FDA recently approved 2 life-saving, life-transforming therapies to treat the sickle cell disease. But these treatments are anywhere north of $2 million. So even in Western world, not many people can benefit from these therapies. A similar picture in the CAR T space where globally less than 3% of patients that could benefit from these therapies can actually benefit from them. So right now we have an addressable patient population of about 900,000 and only 21,000 people have been able to get these treatments. Luckily, there's some good news on the horizon because the number of patients treated with CAR T has been increasing from 2017 all the way to 2023, amounting to this total patient population of 21,000. But even 21,000 patients in the world is just a drop in the ocean. And this is why industry leaders are on a mission to enable widespread access to life-saving therapies globally and also enable access to high-quality, well-tasting, sustainable meat. In this next part, I would like to focus on 3 specific areas, how people from academia, from smaller companies, from big pharma are doing this practically to provide or to enable more widespread access. But before we do that, I would like just to gauge a bit your thoughts and see what you think of out of these 5 challenges we just highlighted. Which one of you think it's that we're moving away from standardized processes? Do you think that's a big challenge? Anyone? Maybe. Okay. Some hands I see. The challenge number 2, that we are now seeing increased personalization or smaller batch sizes. Is that a challenge for some of you? Okay. I see also some hands. Yes. What about the sensitive cells we're now cultivating? Anyone think that is a big challenge? Yes, I see many hands. Good. What about challenge number 4, that the cell has become the product? Yes. Okay. No hesitation. Yes, that's definitely a big one. What about the 5th one, that we don't have widespread access? Anyone think that is a challenge? Yes, I see hands. Okay, good.
And that concludes part 2 of our 4-part series on the evolution and future of bioprocessing. We've explored the 5 major challenges that our industry must overcome to make these breakthrough therapies more accessible. Moving away from platform technologies, increased personalization, working with sensitive cells, the cell as products, and the critical issue of cost and accessibility. These challenges might seem daunting, but they also represent opportunities for innovation. Next month, in part 3, we'll explore how industry leaders are developing powerful solutions to address these very challenges. Are you struggling with bioprocess development challenges that are slowing down your path to market? As a bioprocess innovation expert with deep industry experience, I specialize in helping biotech leaders like you overcome complex development hurdles. Are you ready to explore how you can optimize your development timeline, reduce manufacturing costs, and minimize regulatory risks? If this is you, let's have a focused 30-minute strategy session where we will identify your key challenges and outline potential solutions. This complimentary assessment could be your first step towards faster, more cost-effective bioprocess development. Schedule your free strategy session at BrühlmannConsulting.com, because every development challenge solved means more patients accessing the treatments they need. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Join us next time as we dive into the innovative approaches that are transforming these challenges into opportunities. See you next time. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.